Hello, welcome to Community Problem Solving Coach Training Part 2, Creative and Critical Thinking and the 6-Step Problem Solving Process. My name is Jill Slinker, and I'm the Director of Student Programs of the Indiana Association of School Principals. If you want a more in-depth understanding of the 6-step problem solving process, please go to the videos on the Global Issues Problem Solving Coaches Training by Marion Rutledge. We have those posted on our YouTube page as well as this. Now, Indiana Future Problem Solving is a program of the Indiana Association of School Principals, Department of Student Programs. So here are our training objectives for today. In the last video, we went over background and educational benefits. And now we're going to start talking about creative and critical thinking and the 6-step problem solving process. So, effective problem solving relies on both creative and critical thinking. They're both essential in the problem solving process. They are not exactly the same thing. Creative thinking takes one concept and blows it up into possibilities. Critical thinking asks you to look at one idea and focus in and understand all the aspects of that. In this and the next slides, we are going to distinguish between creative thinking, which is divergent thinking, generating many new ideas and using the principle of deferred judgment, and critical thinking, which is, as I said, convergent thinking. So let's think about this for a minute. You know, when we think of a creative thinker, what are we really thinking of? You're thinking of artists, maybe, or musicians, or writers that create something out of nothing. You know, it's you have more than when you started. And that's what we're looking for here, creative thinking or divergent thinking. So let's think about generating ideas using deferred judgment. This is the old brainstorming, you know, I like that, generating ideas, but we're talking about brainstorming. There are lots of ways to create ideas. Brainstorming is one of them though. But when we talk about generating ideas, we want to defer judgment. We should add no criticism to the ideas that come to the board. Nor should we add praise. Because when you generate ideas, we want to have our students open up all sorts of possibilities. If you criticize an idea or allow the students in the group to criticize an idea before it's had time to blossom, you're shutting down that possibility. You're also shutting down the possibility of that student giving you more ideas. So defer criticism. The same thing with praise, though. You know, we have a hard time as teachers not going, good idea, that's great, you know, and giving them that encouragement. Fine, do that later, but not now. Because encouraging one student's ideas may make them stop thinking, oh, I have a good idea, I don't have to go any farther. If you do that, you're shutting down that student from going farther, and you're also shutting down other students who may think, oh, they had the good idea, I can't come up with anything as good, so, you know, why bother? So no criticism and no praise in this process. We want a quantity of ideas. I love the visual here that the International Office put on this PowerPoint of just cranking out the ideas. You know, we're idea machines, quantity, quantity, quantity. Because the more ideas we come up with, the more we have to work with. We can use combinations of ideas or improvements on ideas, like hitchhiking or piggybacking on someone else's concept. number one, that shows that your students are listening to one another. If they take what somebody else did and then go, oh, and we could also, that will help the entire process. So that is definitely to be encouraged. Freewheeling, wild and crazy ideas are allowed. Whenever we worked on creative projects when I was a teacher, one of the first things I told them is the crazier the better when you're coming up with ideas. You know, if you come up with the wildest thing you've ever imagined, you're just getting started. We can always dial it back later if we need to. So, effective problem solving also relies on critical thinking. That's convergent thinking. You focus on the best ideas, but you have to have a pool of ideas to work from before you can then focus in. And this is where we practice the principle of affirmative judgment. It's not a concept of, ooh, that's a bad idea. We're looking for the good ideas. You know, the bad will shake out, okay? We don't need to worry about that, about judging that. What are the good ideas? So affirmative judgment here. We always try to remain positive when it comes to future problem solving. So let's talk about that, our guidelines here for focusing. We use affirmative judgment. You need to be thorough, but you need to be positive about what you're doing. Follow a plan using focusing tools. There are all sorts of focusing tools out there that you can find. Future Problem Solving publishes information on focusing tools. They are not as commonly used as generating tools in classrooms. You know, we all do lots of webs and brainstorm lists and things like that, but they're really important in this process to actually find the best solution to what you are going to do. This is convergent thinking. So our guidelines that we develop should be posted within the classroom for easy reference. So we have to think about, all right, you know, put a poster up about how to focus in on an idea. Got to keep your eyes on the goal. You know, once you get excited about talking about ideas, students have a tendency to ping pong all over the place. But you know, your goal as a coach, you know, is to keep them on track. So help them keep their eyes on the goal. You need to stay open to all ideas and looking for new and unusual possibilities here. So let's talk about what we're dealing with here. In the problem-solving process, you need both critical thinking and creative thinking. So to understand the problem, you are going to research, analyze the situation, select an underlying problem. All of these things are part of the critical thinking process. And then you have to generate ideas. You've got to identify challenges and produce solution ideas and coordinate with stakeholders. All of this is creative thinking. And then your plan for action really will be doing both of those things. You focus in, that's critical, you focus in on the best solution, and then you develop an action plan. You're creating something out of nothing, so that is a creative process. You develop the action plan, engage with the community, and put those things together. So let's talk about the problem-solving process. And we're going to go really basic here, okay? So we have a community concern. Let's consider the following example. How do you address a community concern? All right, we all know maybe from childhood, some of you guys are much younger than I am, I'm sure, the nursery rhyme of the old woman in a shoe. There was an old woman who lived in a shoe. She had so many children, she didn't know what to do. She gave them some broth without any bread, whipped them all soundly, and sent them to bed. So, very, very same situation here, okay? Common nursery rhyme. So, what would we do? One of the first things that we need to do here is generate a list of possible problems that we could see, possible challenges that we could see that we could try to solve, okay? What can we do to solve this problem for her? Now, there are all sorts of little problems going on in this particular nursery rhyme, right? You know, you've got there's a housing crisis that is happening. She's living in a shoe. She has many children and is having a difficult time taking care of them. She gave them broth without any bread, so there seems to be a hunger issue in her family, maybe nutrition issue. And you whip them all soundly and send them to bed. You might wonder if there is an abusive situation going on in that particular family. So what challenges, let's narrow the focus a little bit here, but what challenges might children growing up in poverty experience? Possible challenges. Living in a shoe, especially if it isn't large, may cause overcrowding as the children grow larger. Living in a shoe may inspire other children to tease the shoe children, causing peer pressure. The children may suffer malnutrition as they are only being fed broth. Okay, so all of that is, part of generating problems. What kind of problem are we dealing with? What kind of challenge is coming up in that particular society? Now, the next step in the problem-solving process is to identify the underlying problem. This is the key step to being successful in all of the other steps. If we don't address an underlying problem, we're not going to be able to solve anything. Okay? So let's think about the different parts of the underlying problem. The first part is what we call the condition phrase. This is basically about how to write an underlying problem so that we are addressing all the parts that we need to. So we have a condition phrase. Let's look at this. Due to the fact that this family does not appear to have the resources to live in anything but a shoe, here's the condition that they are living in, right? What we're essentially doing is we're creating a cause-effect relationship here. They don't appear to have the resources to live in anything but a shoe. How might we assist the old woman with raising her children? Key verb phrase. How can we help? Assist. How can we assist the old woman with raising her children? And what's the goal? What's the key verb? That's the key verb phrase here, right? So that they will grow up to be healthy. That's our purpose. We want these children to be healthy. We need to help the old woman because she lives in a shoe, because she lives in poverty and doesn't have resources. So because she doesn't have resources, she lives in a shoe, we want to help so that they will be healthy. So you have to have the details of the situation. The key verb phrase is what you want to do, and the purpose is why you want to do it. So after that, we generate possible solutions, okay? The early childhood family education classes in the area will provide counseling for the children to alleviate the teasing from others because of living in a shoe. Mother will get a low interest rate loan to build onto the shoe so that the children are not cramped. Children will be taught how to grow vegetables so they can provide healthy additions to meals to take some of the burden off the mother. Mother will be given diet training so she better understands the nutritional needs of her children. There are all sorts of possible solutions to various challenges that they have. All right. From that point, you have to decide, the step 4 and step 5 are about the criteria here. We have to determine the best of the generated solutions. Well, in order to determine what the best solution is, we have to have a way of judging it. So we establish our own criteria for creating or for judging the solution. And this is, again, the students establish their own criteria. There's no outside criteria that is established. So they have to determine how they are going to judge the possible solutions. So, maybe to think about, all right, which solution will provide the most financial support for the old woman and her family? Or which solution will best assist the long-term needs of the woman while raising her children? Or which solution will be accepted the easiest by the children? Which solution will best nurture the psychological health of the family? Which solution will be the easiest for the old woman to utilize? Now notice most, best, easiest, we're using superlatives here because we need to rank our ideas and pick the one that is truly the best one for solving the problem. Then we need to apply our criteria. This is actually a great visual way to do this. You come up with your solution ideas. Down here on the left side of the chart, they have, okay, one solution is classes, maybe on nutrition. Another one's a loan from a bank, empower the children to do something, train on diet, community center. A nanny could be employed at a community center to help take care of the children, etc. Okay, and they decide on their criteria. What are their, criteria number one? Is it cost? Is it, is it least disruptive, etc. Then you rank each of the ideas, okay, each of your solution ideas according to the criteria that you created, okay? So when we look at that, we think, okay, criteria one is least expensive. Well, classes, that was the number one criteria, okay, or the last one that was the most expensive, right? You rank these and then you add them up. You don't have anything, each column should be ranked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you don't have any repeats of numbers. You can repeat a number across the horizontal. For example, you notice classes is ranked number 1 in both criteria 1 and criteria 5, criteria 2, etc. Now, the ranking of this, you should do it actually, 5 is the best and 1 is the worst. Because what you're going to do is you're going to add them across, and whichever criteria has or whichever solution idea has the largest number in criteria, that's the solution idea you should do. So here that you noted that what fulfills all of the criteria the best is a loan, because they ended up with 21 points to the lower points of everybody else. So that's probably how you should go about solving this particular problem. So the top scoring solution idea, right? You use that to develop an action plan. And you need to make sure that you address the underlying problem. So if you thought the underlying problem was that the house was too small and the kids were going to be cramped in the house, then a loan to expand the house would be addressing the underlying problem. So how does the plan impact the problem, right? Why is that going to solve what you want it to solve? So, why is expanding the house going to solve the problem with the children? It's going to give them more room to grow. Then you need a detailed description of the plan. Who's doing the plan? What exactly is the plan? Why is it your plan? When is it going to be implemented? How is it going to be implemented? You need to create timelines and tasks for implementation. Who is going to do what, when? And then you also need to ask yourself about the potential resistors. Who is going to have a problem with this plan? We say that they should get a bank loan. Well, maybe a potential resistor would be the bank. How are you going to overcome that? What about the old lady who lives in a shoe? Maybe she is afraid to get a loan. Maybe she has too much pride to borrow money from someone. How are you going to overcome that? How do you overcome the ability of them to repay the loan once it has been given to them? What are the possibilities? So this is not just about convincing people that your plan is wonderful, but it's about showing people that, yes, you have thought about the difficulties of implementing the plan. So the action plan. So this is a sample of how one might be written, okay? There are trainer's manuals that show you how to do everything, but in order to assist the old woman in raising her children so they grow up healthy, the Small Business Association will So, why are we doing it? And who is responsible? The Small Business Association. What will it allow her to do? It will also help with what else? What obstacle do you need to overcome? You put all of those things in the action plan. Now, again, this is just a very, very basic overview of the 6 steps of the creative problem solving process. If you want a much more in-depth view of it, you need to go to our YouTube page. That's the Indiana Department of Student Programs, Indiana Association of School Principals. Go to our YouTube page and select the series of videos on training global issues, problem-solving coaches. Marion Rutledge of Zionsville goes through those 6 steps in a much more thorough manner. We'll see you for the next video.